I grew up in a house in the woods, and every autumn we faced a particularly strange threat. We would be walking through the forest and sometimes hear this swishing sound like coming from the leaves overhead. And that was our warning to get the hell away from the nearest tree because we were about to get fragged by an acorn flung at our heads from a squirrel 50 feet above us. That's right, squirrels are extremely territorial, so they will just 360 no-scope you with a nut just for being near their favorite tree. They threw the acorns so hard that they would occasionally dent our cars. So squirrels are assholes. They're like evil rats with fluffier tails and better PR. And that, my friends, is why I am personally glad Kamala Harris ordered the deep state to assassinate the Instagram star known as Peanut the Squirrel. Okay, I'm actually making this video on Election Day here in the United States. In part, I'm doing it as a way to not think about what's going to happen tonight and tomorrow. I'd like to think, everything's going to be fine. It's going to be a blowout because Donald Trump is a convicted felon with many rape accusations who is openly bragging about how he's going to be a dictator. But, I thought the same thing back in 2016. So yeah, I'm going to spend today thinking about an Instagram famous pet squirrel. If you've missed this story because, unlike me, you are not terminally online, allow me to fill you in. And just a content warning, no matter how stupid you think the story is going to be, you will not be prepared for how stupid it actually gets. And how dark it gets. It gets very stupid and very dark. Okay. Mark Longo is a man who lives in Western New York State and claims that about 8 years ago, he saw a squirrel get run over by a car and he noticed its baby, which is known as a kit, ran up to him and straight up his leg into his arms. So he took the kit home because all of the wildlife rehabilitation facilities were too busy. So he nursed the baby back to health and released him into his backyard. Unfortunately, the kit was attacked. So he and his partner decided to keep him as an indoor pet squirrel. Thus was Peanut born as they filmed delightful videos of the kit wearing his silly outfits and eating his little snacks. At some point, they realized that Mark himself was hot. So the focus of the videos stopped being Peanut and started being Mark wearing tight pants and flexing. This led to Mark starting Squirrel Daddy, an OnlyFans account where he does what OnlyFans models do. Way to get that nut, Mark. Peanut and Mark developed a following of millions of fans on social media, and so it came as a shock last week when the world learned that New York State officials raided their home, captured Peanut, and had him euthanized. They also took and euthanized Longo's pet raccoon, Fred, but I guess he must not have a social media presence because nobody seems to give a shit about him. So, whatever. Longo was naturally quite upset about all of this, so he took to conservative media outlets like the New York Post to complain that he was treated like a terrorist and that all of this happened thanks to online activist trolls who pushed state officials to act. From there, conservatives on social media picked up the story with Elon Musk shitting that government overreach kidnapped an orphan squirrel and executed him. And thus Peanut the Squirrel became a far-right story of an innocent life taken by big government. Oh, because I know it might be hard to remember these days when the Republican candidate for president is bragging about how he helped put the government in charge of women's bodily autonomy, but Republicans are the party of small government. So they're very upset that the government overreached. They murdered this poor, innocent, fuzzy pet who did absolutely nothing wrong. Here's the thing. They are correct that little Peanut did not do anything wrong. Yes, squirrels are violent acorn-hurling jerks, but joking aside, I love animals. All animals. I even love squirrels. But my love of animals includes knowledge that most animals are not pets. And so we must accept the fact that Mark Longo did do something wrong. In fact, he did a lot of things wrong. That may surprise you, seeing as Peanut looked so happy and he managed to live indoors for so many years now. But there's more to animal welfare than just being able to get the animal to wear a cowboy hat for an Instagram video. I end all of my videos with a clip of my dog, Indy, and he always looks happy and healthy, and sometimes he too is dressed up in silly costumes. But what you don't see is all the stuff I do behind the scenes. He has an annual checkup at his veterinarian. He has annual vaccinations for leptospirosis and bordetella and influenza. He takes monthly medications to prevent heartworm, fleas, and ticks. He gets a 3-year vaccine for distemper, hepatitis, parainfluenza, and parvo. When he displays odd behaviors, like last year when he suddenly had dizzy spells, he's fine, it was temporary. His vet sees him and prescribes him the appropriate medication. And most importantly, every 3 years, he gets a vaccine to prevent rabies. That is so important that the city of Oakland requires I show proof that his vaccine is up to date, and he wears a collar with his license number on it. Doggy daycares and groomers ask to see that proof before he's allowed inside. Why? Because rabies is highly infectious and almost 100% fatal. Rabies is an absolutely terrifying virus that infects the nervous system. It's maybe the closest thing we have to a zombie virus because it removes animals' innate fear, it makes them violent, it causes them to produce extra saliva, all of which leads to an increased chance that they will bite another animal and thereby infect them with rabies too. Rabies can infect all warm-blooded species, yes, even possums, and has even evolved to infect some cold-blooded animals as well. In humans, it causes delirium and intense fear of drinking water or even swallowing, and sometimes the same aggression can occur that we see in other animals. Only a handful of people have ever survived it. It is a horrible, painful, slow way to die. We have a vaccine, but it must be administered within days of being bitten before the virus has a chance to take hold. It requires at least 2 shots, usually 4 if you've never had the vaccine before. You may need a booster 3 years later just to be sure that the virus was contained, and it can cause a bunch of painful side effects. Oh, and here in the United States, it'll cost you about 500 freedom bucks to get. That's why most states, including New York, where Peanut lived, have laws against keeping wild animals in your home without a license. When the state officials came to take Peanut, he bit one of the workers. Because Longo was keeping him illegally, Peanut had never seen a veterinarian, let alone had a rabies vaccine. The chance that he had rabies was very low, but it was not 0. Yes, he had been inside for nearly 8 years at that point, but a few months ago, Longo illegally brought home the aforementioned wild raccoon. Raccoons, like squirrels, are a known vector for rabies. There is no rabies test for animals that can be performed without euthanizing the animal first. In order to definitively rule out the virus, you absolutely must have a cross-section of the animal's brain. Not so fun fact, I learned that when I was a kid because my beloved outdoor cat was dying and had to go to the vet, and we couldn't get the body back after she was euthanized because she bit the vet and she didn't have a rabies vaccine, and so they had to remove her entire head and send it to a facility for testing. You weren't expecting this story to get this dark, were you? I mean, I warned you. So no, this was not a case of government overreach. This is a case of Mark Longo putting his own selfish desires for companionship or internet fame or OnlyFans money, whatever, above Peanut's needs. Here are the mistakes he made, in order. First, he should have called animal control or taken the kit directly to a licensed wildlife rescue. They would know exactly how to rehabilitate him correctly, which would mean not just keeping him alive, as Longo did, but preparing him to be released back into the wild where he belongs. Failing that, Longo could have gone to his local permitting office and discussed options for getting a license to keep Peanut. This would have stopped him from making the third mistake, which was not taking Peanut to a veterinarian. The final mistake he made was exploiting Peanut for internet points. Had he not posted him online and built up this massive audience, no one at New York's Departments of Environmental Conservation and Health would have even known Peanut existed, let alone come to take him away. It's a funny meme these days to make fun of people who constantly worry about, the silly behaviors and videos that people post online of their pets. Like, hey, that's not amusing. That Godzilla is actually displaying signs of stress. But in this case, the worrywarts were right. Wild animals belong in the wild, and Mark Longo brought this entire thing down on himself. I'd like to think he's learned his lesson from this, but seeing as how he's run to the New York Post to whine about everything and how he has apparently opened up Peanuts Freedom Farm Animal Sanctuary, I'm not so sure. So please do not reward him with your views on Instagram or, God forbid, your dollars on OnlyFans. There are other more responsible, better educated, more ethical wildlife rescuers to jerk it to. Jesus Christ, what a sentence that was. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.